Glad you could join us. I'm Annette Scherman. This is Community. Okay, I'm going to read the first couple of paragraphs from a column written by Dr. Meg Lowman, which appeared in our Herald-Tribune, and it's titled, Tracking Big Cats in India. In awe, we stopped dead in our tracks to gaze at the enormous impression in the wet sand. Our guide whispered, "Tiger, big tiger." I could hear my heart pound. No other sounds in the forest except the wind whispering in the Kalenia tree canopy overhead. The track was significantly larger than my handprint, and evidently this large cat had walked ahead of us only 10 minutes before. It seemed almost too close for comfort, yet that was our mission, fostering forest conservation in India, which translates into saving tigers. Well, we have our tiger saver here with us today, a very dear friend and someone I admire tremendously, Dr. Meg Lowman. And Dr. Lowman is currently, I'll read her title, which is pretty long, but here it is. She is the director of the Nature Research Center at North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, and she is a professor at Carolina State University, but I think most of us know her simply as CanopyMeg. And then we have Angelique Giraud, and Angelique is a new college student working on environmental education. Okay, Meg, are you still part of New College?
I am, and Angelique is one of my wonderful students. I was actually recruited by North Carolina to set up an incredible science education and research center, something that maybe someday Florida would love to have as well. So it's an opportunity not to pass up. And
how long are you going to be involved with that?
I have 2 years. It opens in April 2012, so the clock has started.
You have 2 years starting in 2012?
I started last August.
Oh, okay.
So we're getting underway. The construction is half complete. I'm hiring the staff and creating the program, but a lot of it builds on what we've done here in Florida, thinking about field stations, doing environmental education, having the Jason Project as a big success. So all sorts of programs here have led to this opportunity, and North Carolina just happened to get there first, but anyway.
Well, I'm sure they're thrilled to have you, and we miss you. Your articles in the Herald-Tribune continue, is it every other Monday?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you can see, I've clipped it out. It's not going to be very interesting to look at that way, but you can read Meg Lowman and the Herald-Tribune every other Monday. I look for, it's opposite the editorial page.
Correct.
So it's very easy to find. I do want to hear much more about the India trips and the Ethiopian trip. We'll get to that in a minute. Explain about being the first ever New College senior Fulbright scholar.
Right. The senior specialist Fulbrights are a little unique because they recruit supposed experts in the field, and I guess there aren't too many canopy or forest experts globally. So Fulbright recruited me to go to India as a specialist in hopes of inspiring forest conservation over there. I spoke and visited with most of the forestry departments in each state of the country, and also had my own chance to go out into some of the forests to survey those amazing creatures that really make India special.
Meg has been on the program. We'd like to have her on at least once a year, and inevitably she'll say, well, why don't you come with me on this trip?
I'd love it, Annette.
Yeah, I know, sweetheart. But then, see, I asked her when you're on the program, can I wear makeup? Well, she didn't think so. Where do you eat? What kind of food? What kind of accommodations? I'm not a candidate for this kind of thing.
The Tiger Reserve of India is not for you. I will confess.
Well, when you come up with something a little more my style,
okay,
I'm with you.
I'm looking.
And I always concern myself about bugs and so forth. Are you like immune to that?
Well, long sleeves just do wonders, so there you go.
Give us the story of India, and we have some visuals that I think you'll be thrilled to see. Whenever you're ready with the individual with the visuals, what do we see there?
Sure. So there's a leopard. We actually saw this leopard catch its breakfast, take it up in the tree canopy, and munch away. So it's extraordinary, a very endangered species that needs the forest for its lifestyle.
I'm going to stop. We can take that picture off now. Just one thing. Oh, hold on with that picture. Your goal in going there, Meg, was what?
My goal was to talk about the United Nations International Year of the Forest to inspire Indian forestry departments and Indian science researchers to include conservation and education with their national park programs, with their state park programs. So kind of a package of how do we help the forest most? And we could lock the door and walk away, which is what they sometimes tend to do, or we can educate the children, educate the policymakers about why forests are special. And India's right on the edge now of really exploding in population, of doing things that might require development of their forests. So globally, it becomes very important to work with India and make sure we can have good conservation.
Let's see those animals again that we just had. Okay, what do we see there?
There's our precious tiger, and that's
they're awfully beautiful,
they
but
are
they're
so beautiful.
dangerous,
they
Meg.
Are dangerous, and there are only 1,400 left.
Oh gosh!
And that's halved in the last 10 years. And again, they live in the forests of India. Lots of political issues, but it's all about conservation and educating the locals.
So you were up close and personal with these animals.
Too much, I'm afraid.
We
Anyway.
were worried about you when we heard you were there,
thanks.
but I said, don't worry about Meg.
Actually,
She knows how to.
6 researchers from World Wildlife Fund got kidnapped at gunpoint right next to my research area. And so my colleagues who were Indian immediately took me out of that area. There's a lot of difficult politics
And you want
with
me to go on
tigers.
this trip?
I don't. I promise you can stay home.
Okay. The next picture coming up is?
This is just to illustrate how entrepreneurial Indians are. It's a lunch or snack cart everywhere you look.
How is the food
People
in
are.
India?
It's fantastic
Indian.
if you like vegetarian, and it's fantastic if you like curry. I must admit, miss my little cheese and crackers and a glass of milk.
Next picture.
That's on elephant back, surveying some of these wildlife. It's very dangerous to go on foot, as you mentioned. So we actually used elephants to monitor the rhinos in one of the famous parks called Kaziranga National Park, and at the same time see tigers, which is extraordinary when you think about it, being on that great big old elephant. And then seeing these other animals.
I love seeing the animals, and I do love going to some of these places where they have animals roaming free, and you can see them. But there are fences.
Right. And see, India doesn't have that kind of infrastructure. They lose many park
Well, you weren't
rangers a
interested
year.
in fences, my friend.
No, that's true, but it does make a difference for tourism. So we're trying to work on canopy walkways for India, other programs that will allow them to have an income stream from their natural resources.
So that, like Africa does.
Exactly,
You can go
right.
and see these beautiful creatures and not
Safely.
have any fear that you're going to be eaten up.
Right.
Or
Which is a big fear right now.
Next picture, please.
And that's the ferry across to Bangladesh. A lot of the people in the northeastern part of India work in both sides. The tigers, remember, are in eastern India and into China and Tibet, as well as southern India. So this is their last area, but you can see there are a lot of people living there, and there's a lot of politics about nature
poverty, too.
and people in absolute poverty, yes.
Next picture.
There we are, spotting a rhino. You can see me trying to take a picture of it with my camera.
What are you sitting on?
And I'm sitting on the elephant. That's my elephant driver. And he's really amazing because he directs the elephant carefully so that we won't go running off into the swamp and go into the mud. And so we were able to get within 10 feet.
That's not a comfortable animal to ride. I sat upon an
right.
elephant. We were covering a circus feature. It's an uncomfortable animal. I mean, it's
Actually,
a big
it's
animal.
huge. I could hardly walk when I got off. I'll confess.
Now you're coming down to earth. Sure, okay. Oh, but there you are, game as usual.
But you see, you could never get close to a wild rhino like that, except on elephant back. See, we're about 10 feet away from that, the rump of that rhino.
Last picture from India.
And those are the women. I lectured all over the country, and at one point I went to a women's college in the town of Guwahati, which is
Guwahati?
I know, that's the capital of Assam, the northeastern state of India. And all of these women just crowded around me at the end and said, how can we become conservation biologists? Help us get advanced degrees. And they're dressed in their beautiful saris with so many traditions that they need to uphold, including arranged marriages. And yet they really want to grow up and be scientists. So it's an amazing situation, I think, in that country with lots of technology, changing things so quickly, but a lot of traditions, some of which are wonderful and some of which might be holding back some of the women.
You see why not only I love Meg Lowman, but I have to take a number, as they say in the market, because her students love her, and if you can see Angelique shaking her head, and you can see why. She is right down to earth with a wealth of knowledge, and we love having her on the program. And she brings me gifts. When she comes back on these trips, hold this so the camera can get it, because they're not, and tell them what that is. He'll get that in just a moment. Last time you brought me some potion.
Lollipops and potions.
What is this?
But
now the camera has it.
I bring you gifts because I love you too. And we are so different that I just learn so much talking with you. This is, for you, a beautiful sweet Queen Ant Crunch. It's a chocolate with queen ants inside that makes the chocolate
Did you get
crunchy.
that? Ants. A-N-T-S. Not on, A-U-N-T, not that. Well, that would be sad. But ants in there. Now,
and you know, for the Year of the Forest, we need to think about sustainable ways we can support forest conservation. Eating insects,
have you
believe it
ever
or
eaten
not,
that stuff?
I love it. It's my favorite. And you can buy shade-grown coffee. You can be very careful what sorts of timber you buy, but there are lots of ways to shop. Chocolate's the most fun that you can help support forest conservation in this Year of the Forest.
I'll find a different way, Meg. But thank you for your lovely thought. You mentioned in your notes that you had a scoop for us about saving the last tigers. What is it?
I learned something amazing by being there on the ground next to the tiger, literally and figuratively. One thing that we overlook when we read about international conservation, we think it's simple. Just save the tiger, pay some more money to make the park bigger and better. But we forget about the locals. And I learned from the locals of their issues. They need jobs. Sometimes their whole villages are displaced when a tiger reserve is declared. And so somehow for all of these conservation issues, when we send our checks in and hope there's a cure, we need to remember that it's all about working with the locals, local as well as international. And so now I have very new ideas about how we can help endangered species in forest conservation.
And again, we always run out of, we're not running out of time right now, but we always run out of time when we cover what we have to. And I always say I would like you to come back and talk about some of these things, some of the ways we can aid these countries,
Right.
because without these animals, without the natural balance of animals in the world,
Right.
that becomes a problem.
Absolutely. Can you imagine a world without tigers?
It's not even the beauty of them, but it's the ecology, the ecological balance of animals. I don't know anything. I don't know what I'm saying. Do I sound like I know what I'm saying? I don't.
Annette, it's great. A+.
So far, so good, even though I don't know. We're going to talk about the Ethiopia trip. Angelique, sweetheart, we are going to definitely get to you, and I know there's a great deal I want to hear from Angelique. But let's start with this, and I will get a time cue along the line. All right, we see, before we get to the first picture, David, before we get to that picture, tell about the trip to Ethiopia. Now, what was that based on the same theory?
Similar, yes. I'm working in Ethiopia with National Geographic. And even worse than India, Ethiopia only has 5% or less of its forest left. It's a dire situation. Within 10 years, we predict they will lose everything, which means native seeds, freshwater springs, pollinators, honey, their spiritual sanctuary. So there's a lot tied up with forest conservation. In this case, I'm working again with locals, that magic solution, and we're trying very hard to make simple ways for them to keep their forests. The neat thing about Ethiopia is that I'm working with the church, and that's a wonderful partner. The churches have the last remaining forest, which is really impressive. When you look at American churches, we're usually surrounded by cement, I'm embarrassed to say, and parking lots. But in Ethiopia, a good church surrounds itself with forest. And these priests wanted my help to try to create fences, to create strategies that would help them make sure they don't lose.
All sorts of things
Right.
that we don't think about when we think of Meg Lowman. I think of the nature and the nature preserves. We're going to get back to this, and the reason I say that is because I want to talk to Angelique, and then we will use the remainder of the time after Angelique to get to the rest of this Ethiopian trip. Angelique, I'm going to give you some quick questions. I want quick answers to them, okay? How old are you?
I'm 22.
And you look 14, but okay, 22 is good. Where are you from?
I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Oh, okay, Florida.
Yes.
And just a bit about your mom and dad.
My mom is a nurse and my father is a carpenter, and they've always supported me, and they're both environmentalists and support me studying environmental science at New College.
Even though it sounds to me, well, you're a New College student, which means that you're an extraordinary person right from the get-go, but obviously to have a mom and dad. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have a half-brother.
But to have a mom and dad, and for you to say at this point in your life that they've always been supportive, that means that you're heading right for success.
Yes,
It
I
really,
think
with
so.
what you give to it and their support. What field are your studies in at New College?
I'm majoring in environmental science, so I'll actually graduate in May with that Bachelor
Graduate
of Arts
in
degree.
May. We'll talk a little bit about that. You accompanied Meg on some trips. Tell us briefly, I have notes here, the Mayaka trip to the Lemur Reserve. What was that like?
It was so interesting. In Madagascar, lemurs are endangered. Their forests are being
Beautiful
wiped out.
creatures. I
They
mean,
are.
you're talking about lions, and lemurs are beautiful. They're beautiful eyes.
Yes. So they're in the reserve in Mayaka where they can help keep that species alive. They're protected there.
So that was an interesting thing to experience.
Yes, to see the lemurs. I didn't think that I'd get to see them. I thought they'd be hiding somewhere.
The Ecology and Education Summit in Washington, D.C., where I know you were a significant individual. We'll hopefully have time to talk about that, Meg. Talk about that, your experience there.
It was unbelievable. I had such a great time. I was able to meet business, educators, academic people, and government, just people who are all interested in using ecology to improve science education in the U.S. And I was able to go to this as Meg's assistant, and I had some funding from the Tree Foundation that Meg helped me with.
Just a few words in answer to this. We love Meg Lowman. Would you say that's a universal feeling at New College for the students?
I would say that, yes, I agree.
I have to raise her salary.
You pay her by the week. No, you don't. Because she told me when you weren't present, and I know that, and we all know that. We're so happy to have you as part of our community, Meg.
Oh,
You're
thanks.
marvelous.
It's a special community.
Angelique, what will your senior thesis deal with, like as if I didn't know?
I'm working on environmental education, so I created a lesson on the Everglades and I presented it to high school students around here.
Okay. All right. This is a tough question, and it's a dream question. I mean, the answer may be a dream, but I have a feeling it's going to be actual. Where will you be and what will you be doing in 10 years?
I will be working at a university teaching environmental science.
And giving competition to Dr. Lowman.
Yes.
Maybe we'll collaborate.
There you go. Sounds good.
Back to you, Meg. We're almost got to Ethiopia, and we have those pictures. Let's see those start with the Ethiopia pictures.
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
what do we see?
And this is what a church forest looks like from the plane as we flew into the country. Those green circles in the center with the little silver roof that's circular is the church surrounded by the green church forest.
Okay, next picture.
And here I am last year in order to get the partnership with the church, and this is a different side of me from what you've ever seen. I needed to talk to all the priests, and so I had to do
I
some.
would imagine you could do that. I would send you forward. to do
Anyway,
that.
you can hardly see me in the center as the only white face and the only female, but they absolutely were riveted because I think they couldn't believe someone would come 10,000 miles to help them save their forest. So rather than being a stand off or stand out, which I really was, they absolutely felt very
Is there a
thrilled.
language barrier?
Very much so. My local colleague translated, so that was very important too. Again, that important value that I've learned of always working with locals and not trying to do things above their heads.
Next picture, please.
This is two of the priests who are so excited to come out in the forest with us. National Geographic funded my colleague and me to study the biodiversity of the forests. And so a lot of the priests and the children got very excited about that. It was extraordinary.
Next picture, please.
And here are some of the children. And this was very heartwarming, but the priests during the year from when I spoke with them, and then we came back with the science team and some new college students, we ended up finding out that they had actually hauled the stones out of their fields to start making walls to save their forests. It was so sweet. And now one of my missions with the Tree Foundation is that we're funding local labor to finish off these stone walls, because that's just a clear and easy solution. $6 a cubic meter is what it costs local labor to make these
You can
walls.
give a contribution to the, say the name again?
Tree Foundation.
Tree Foundation. And say that, is there a telephone number?
There is, or www.treefoundation.org. Jerry Aaron's the president. Everyone knows Jerry, and I'm always out there. They can contact me. But
www.treefoundation.org.
Right.
If you want to find out more about how you can help this whole process of what you've been
Right.
hearing about today, www.treefoundation.org. Check it out.
And it sounds far away, but this is one planet. We know with technology, we know with tigers and special animals that we need to work on all of these countries and give them our best practices, which is so important.
Let's see the next picture, as long as we have some time.
There are some of the insects that we found in these church forests, extraordinary things out there
how
in the
fun.
world, like leafcutter ants, new kinds of beetles.
Yuck.
We're thinking of auctioning some of the names to
Yuck.
help save the forest. Maybe we could have the Annette ant.
No. How about Antoinette?
Okay, I think it's great.
No, don't include me. I'd like to help, but not that way. Next picture. We should
Okay.
have, this is, you don't have any more that they have ready. Okay, so you're here.
Great.
Tell us about, we don't have too much time, someone will tell me how much time we have. The Washington, D.C. trip that we talked about with Angelique, and you chaired the Sustainable Education Summit, and you took how many students with you?
Right. Well, I had about 5 students, actually, including a couple graduated students who were working in Washington and signed up. But New College is a unique and extraordinary community. The students are so motivated, and I feel so blessed to have great students. So in the end, we needed a lot of volunteers. This was an amazing meeting where we had diverse stakeholders, religious leaders, government officials, along with academics. Too often we have just academics at a conference, and the attempt here is to say, how can we make a difference? How can we really make solutions in conservation and sustainability, not just writing papers in journals? So the whole conference mission was to create an action plan, not a written report at the end. And it was
And you feel it was a successful?
Absolutely. We've
conference?
had some of those actions are being accomplished by different committees that were formed at the conference. We have a new, people wrote letters to their local leadership about science education. Mine was actually in the Herald in January. We had that happening all over the country. We have now some new applications for iPhones, and and different kinds of, child-friendly gadgets where kids can learn more about sustainability. We have another group working on environmental health to create some new ways of learning.
This really was very productive.
It was really, really inspiring.
And I know you enjoyed it, Angelique, and met all these wonderful people. Things that Dr. Lowman brings back, okay? I don't know if we can get a shot of these bugs. And where the heck?
So this is the kind of thing we're doing in Ethiopia.
Well, leave it straight up.
Okay.
You can get it. Is the kind of thing what?
We're surveying the biodiversity in Ethiopian forests now, mainly insects. Most of the animals have been poached and the birds have been hunted, but fortunately the insects are left. So that's a really important thing.
He's got a yuck. Got a good picture of the. But
there you go.
Does somebody outside of Meg Lowman, does somebody want these insects?
Absolutely, because
Angelique, you want them, Angelique?
Yes, they're very important for the forest.
I thought she was going to say they're cute. They're not.
that too.
They're not cute.
They're useful. Do you know those insects turn over the litter? If we didn't have insects, we'd be drowning in 30 feet of waste, falling leaves, and all sorts of garbage all over the world. But wonderful things like dung beetles.
I didn't think anyone could make me like insects, but Dr. Lowman did. Yeah, well, the choice is not really very, very exciting.
Exactly. Think of the choice.
Yeah, look at the choice. So how is this? You have this somewhere in your office somewhere?
I do. I am always trying to make sure I have a little bit of something for the students to look at while we're chatting.
We're almost out of time, but I do want to ask you, because I'm curious, about 15 years or more ago when I first met Dr. Lowman, it was the first book fair. It wasn't the
That's
book fair.
right.
It was a book something or other.
The book festival.
Book what?
The book festival.
Book
downtown.
festival, right. And you had two little boys with you. You professed to claim were your sons, and they were adorable. And I have never seen, I shouldn't say never, I hardly ever have seen two little boys like that who adored their mom and wanted to go on her travels with her. And where are these two little boys now, and how old are they?
Oh my gosh. Well, here's the picture just in the book of when they were that age. I do love that age. It was so much fun. And now Eddie is doing a graduate degree in sustainability at Arizona State and with an engineering certificate in solar power. And James is a consultant for Bain in Boston. And right now he's working on
Consultant
energy.
or Bain?
For a company called Bain Consultants.
Oh, Bain. I thought you said Urbane. I'm serious, very urbane.
He is. He's loving Boston, but he's actually helping General Electric with their energy policy. So it's kind of neat because I think what they've done is taken their mom's crazy science and turned it into more
Not crazy,
solutions.
darling. Not crazy. It's just a passion.
Right.
And what you do and what your work is and what you teach. And when you have students like Angelique who
Right.
recognize your passion for it, and it transmits into learning and faster learning and an interest in it that probably wouldn't exist without that passion. It's a Jungle Up There is one of Dr. Meg Lowman's books. And is this another one?
It is. It's a little onerous because it's a textbook, but you never know. People need to.
Well, if it's well written, which I know you and you're an excellent writer, it's probably excellent. So those are the books. We don't have enough time for this lovely lady and for my very lovely Angelique. I do want to remind you that Community is brought to you as a non-commercial public service by Community Video Archives in partnership with SNN Local News 6. You can see Community on SNN Local News 6 each Sunday at 8 p.m. You can also see Community on Comcast, Channel 189, each Thursday and Friday at 4 p.m. The latest independent survey, in fact, the last two independent surveys, report that Community has the largest viewership of any local program in this area, and for that, we thank you. So keep watching. Meg, I think next year when we have you back on, maybe we'll designate two shows, and you can bring, I know you love your students, you like to have them with you. Maybe we can do that. Check out the Herald-Tribune every other Monday for Meg's column, and keep on keeping on, my friend.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye out there.
The time really flew. We bid you adieu from Community. If you want to know why we love it here, so check out Community. Well, it's a who's who, a what's, when, and where show. It's a mover and shakers who care a show. Meet your neighbors and friends, each one has a passion. The topics vary from nature to fashion. The host with the most on our cultural coast is Annette with Community. See you next time.